Welcome, everybody. Can we hear me all right? We're good? Okay, great. So let's start with some introductory prayers. Okay. Om Namo Buddhaya Gurave Namo Dharmaya Taine Namo Samgaya Mahade Trivyobi Satatan Namaha O Namo Buddhaya Gurave Namo Dharmaya Taine Namo Samgaya Mahade Trimyo Sadatan Namaha O Namo Buddhaya Gurave Namo Dharmaya Taine Namo Samgaya Mahade Trimyo Satatan Namaha Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dhammam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami Buddham Sharanam Gacchami Dharmam Sharanam Gacchami Sangham Sharanam Gacchami O Dara Semdzin Tanje Lo Chusu Drawer Jinji Landu So Chulandu Drawer Jinji Landu So Anjumba Sawar Jinji Landu So Drumba Yeshisun Drawer Jinji Landu So Lai Kiran Ringe Namanami Kinanda Dro Kunji Jigi Jisamba Tajiki Dudaki Chojindu Abalai Hotesi Sudindimi Nvidi Joey Jitsin Karanji Kamabala Swa Jisun Joey Jitsu Kamabe Rajan Jinli Jala Wonjua Tai Sinda Rajan Rirajan Bajamana Swa Jambajana Bira Namaja Shazela Jaya Chitusamba, Kamadana Bimanda Yali, Jayan Chatsawamba Soa, Kadarla Zimbira Nambardra, Sojana Jason Yelosodi, Remain Zayan Chanzo, Lord Tai, Chala Soa, Omen Chuchi, Inji, Purani, Tusan Sonji Kunji Noni, Ransom, Chukunon Son Tonze, Zoela Meshala Soa. So we begin with bodhicitta. Let's just break it down slowly, gradually, starting with self-attunement. So if you like, you can put a hand on the belly or on the heart or both, and just spend some time breathing and feeling that contact. So as you breathe in, you receive that touch, sense of being contained and held and known. And as you breathe out, sense of acceptance, release. Just ride the breath with that orientation, that sense of attunement and regard. And as you breathe and feel, just notice what comes to the surface, notice what's being held. And just really allowing your condition to show up so that it's not swept under the rug or left behind, pushed down, ignored in any way, but really fully acknowledging and knowing however it is that we are. Pleasant or unpleasant or neutral or numb. And then just let your hands rest, but still feeling the place where the hands were. Breathing through that, or those places of vulnerability, of tenderness, and feeling a little bit more open to the space around you. And still staying in touch with what you're feeling, but also now opening with an altruistic mind. Balancing self-concern with an altruistic wish to benefit others. And start to, breath by breath, expand and extend that altruistic wish. While staying in touch with your own side, self-care. Start to segue into a universally altruistic mind. Impartial, all-inclusive. You can feel it spatially, all around, every direction. Maybe you can feel it more as a tone, more as a wish. Awakening of all beings, including oneself. And in a more tangible way, you can imagine that as this wish is extended, everyone that it's touching is liberated and ripened. That, like one candle being lit by another in every direction, this wish of bodhicitta is radiating out, awakening more and more beings. And notice how that arises in your own awareness at the same time as imagining it around you. One's own awakening, unfolding, maturing at the same time. May all beings awaken. Starting to touch the immensity of that, the pervasiveness, and just when it starts to feel too much to hold, just let it go. Just relax and release. Rest without reference. Yet in the essence of that wish. Bodhicitta being something that is ever present and effortless. And then again, engage in the immensity of that wish, the awakening of all beings, with some effort, with some sense of purpose. Again, allow it to mature, to expand, to pervade. And then again, let it go. Rest in and recognize the always already, bodhicitta. And see if you can blend these two modes of the wishing and the releasing of the wish. Sometimes leaning more into one side, of application, sometimes leaning back and allowing. Finding that middle space. Okay, let's try to invite this into our body. Awakening the body as bodhicitta. Let's begin just by refreshing the winds in the body. Take 3 long, slow inhalation. Pervade the body with that freshness, and then exhale long and slow. Squeeze the breath out at the end. Breathe in, inviting rainbow light, pure essence of the 5 elements. Allow that to pervade the body. Exhale, release. Let go of any kind of impediment, restriction. Now do a little bit more quickly. Three times. Just rest, feel the natural ebb and flow of the breath in the body. Just a complete breathing with hands on the hips. Breathe in and fill the belly. Then add the chest. And breathe in all the way up to the top of the chest. And exhale from the top down. Squeeze out the belly. Do that 3 times. Belly, chest, upper chest, and out. One last time. Okay, now just breathe naturally with the belly. And again, reconnect with the starting point of bodhicitta. And now feeling in the body its very aliveness, the vitality, spaciousness. What is it like to know that as a dimension of bodhicitta? You can again generate that wish, the wishing mind for the awakening of all beings. And try to see how every cell of the body relates with that wish. How is it embodied? Are there places that resonate with it, that are transparent to it? Are there places that are resistant or blocked or not feeling that resonance? Just notice. In the same way as before, just gradually back off of the wishing into the abiding, the always, already. Just some more movement. Again, breathe in at the belly, chest, upper chest. And left shoulder to the right knee, twisting, bending, exhaling. Breathing in, coming back to center. Exhaling, right shoulder to the left knee. In and out 3 times. And as you rest now at the end, breathing into the body, feeling through all of the different spaces of the body. Again, what is it like to know this as bodhicitta embodied, as the body breathing, living, the essence of bodhicitta? Okay, the next movement, hands on the hips, breathing in all the way up and then twisting as you exhale, squeezing all the way down to the belly, feeling the belly as you twist back. Three times to each side. And again, as you rest, invite the breath into the body, feel sensation, feel space. Notice whatever you might find. And if it's helpful, you can conceptually remember bodhicitta. May all beings become Buddha, awaken to their full potential. Or you can simply remember the more intuitive resonance of that wish. What is it like in essence? And again, see how that resonates with the sensation of the body, the aliveness and the spaciousness. And you can blend it. This is not something that we are necessarily trying to mix, like two different things being blended, but rather remembering and allowing that to be known, the body's underlying condition to be known and remembered as a dimension of bodhicitta. What is that like? Yeah, hands on the hips again, breathing in and exhaling, bending to the side. 3 times. And again, same thing. As we rest, noticing any new corners to the inner body, any hidden, unfelt aspects that now have a sense of sensation, breathing through those spaces. Body, the inner body as bodhicitta. The body becoming more transparent. The mind resting with less fixation, less intentionality or direction. Dropping body, dropping mind, resting in and as bodhicitta. How simple can it be? Not only wishing bodhicitta, not only embodying that wish, but starting to know and feel the quality of everything around you, resonating and breathing as bodhicitta, appearing, reflecting as bodhicitta. A little space of awareness that includes body and mind. Your hands on the knees, breathing in and arching back. Exhaling, rolling forward, and squeezing out the belly, reducing it all the way down to a pinpoint in the lower belly. Breathing in from that point and filling and arching back. Three times and then rest. Breath by breath, again, just very smoothly gliding out into openness, into an all-pervasive, panoramic, an immersive sense of bodhicitta. You may need to spend some time breathing with the body again, inviting it into any areas that are painful or blocked, numb, activated, and breath by breath, the body becoming more transparent, conceptual mind becoming more spacious, body mind more permeable and open, mixing, unfolding into space all around, behind, below. Again, what is it like to know this as bodhicitta? Does that create an inflection in some way? Or is it self-evident? Or is it different? Is there a gap between quality of your resting body, mind, and openness and the essence of bodhicitta? Perhaps it's much more simple than any of that. How simple can it be? This idealistic crusade that we may cause all beings to realize their Buddha nature. How simple can it be? Okay, let's do one more movement. Hands on the knees, breathing in, breathing out. And just a light breath in, hold the breath, and then just rotate the hips, rotate the whole torso all the way around a big circle while gently holding the breath. No particular way of holding, just openly rotating. And then reverse. And
Lama, if you could please unmute.
so we'll begin now with a series of what's called the 21 Semdzins, a series of sounds, visualizations, contemplations to unfold the space more completely. Just beginning as we left off, full sense of embodied presence in openness. And feel what it's like to sense a drop of light on the tip of your nose. Point of light. If you know the Tibetan syllable ah, that's fine, or you can put a letter A there, a white letter A, or just a drop of white light. And try to feel that, maybe a little bit ticklish on the tip of the nose, a little bit of sensation there. And as you feel that, continue to feel the body as a whole. Remain in relaxed, open presence, embodied presence, but with a drop of light on the tip of the nose. Take a breath in. And as you breathe out, imagine that drop of light extending a little bit out in front of you. Maybe a foot, 3 feet. Follow it. Breathing in, bring it back at your own pace. Breathing out, it extends. Breathing in, it returns. And breath by breath, allow it to travel a little bit further every time. You can allow it to travel through walls, through buildings, trees. Breath by breath, extending it further and further out into space. Let the gaze be diffuse and open. Or following that drop of light more with the mind's eye. And notice if you are overly fixating on that, coming and going, losing the body in the process, losing the openness of space. And notice, on the other hand, if you are more dispersed, losing the focus. Try to balance the focus and the space. Breath by breath, moving more and more into space. The light traveling further and further out. And at the end of the next out breath, just let the light go. And just keep traveling out to a vanishing point. Breathe naturally. As soon as you start to sense the snowballing, the accretion of conceptual movements, do a short utterance of a syllable. Many of you are familiar with pe. So there's an aspirated p and then a tra at the end. Pe. So on your own, everyone's muted, so don't worry. Everything start to get sticky. Reference points start to assert themselves. Just blow it all away with a short the gap. Again, look nakedly at bodhicitta. Flash on bodhicitta. Hey. Let's move on to ha. So to begin, we're going to do 3 shakes with ha. So breathe in, the whole body, falling, breathe in, and just massaging the whole body. Now the same principle as we did with pei, this time using the syllable ha, but with an attitude of type of confidence, of humor, almost like laughing at the spectacle of appearance, of mental fixation, laughing it off. It can be a single ha. It can be 3 ha's in a row, 2, 3. And again, just resting, open, without fixation. And as you notice, fixation, reference point, conceptual grasping. Ah, ah, ah. Ah. So there is the abiding, and there is the noticing of fixation, and there is the intervention, and there is the aftermath of the intervention. Try to allow the movement through all of these to be as uncontrived as possible. Huh, huh, huh. Okay, let's move to another exercise. Again, just taking a break by massaging the whole body, reactivating body sensation. And then again, opening all around. Going back to bodhicitta. We practice the Semdzin of home. And sonifying home, we have your mouth open, and we're also opening the sinuses. So the home is happening through total openness in the head, mouth, nose, sinuses, everything. And if you were to write it, it'd be H-U-N-G, sometimes H-U-M, but it's really Ng because there's a nasalization of the sound. What we're going to do is intone 3 long with every out breath, kind of like a wave. And at the end of that intonation, sonification, just rest. Begin breathing in. Try it again, and this time try to feel the resonance throughout every cell of the body, every fiber of the body resonating with that syllable, and also the space around you, everything that is appearing around you, the floor, the walls, the air, anything that appears also resonating with that same sound, inside, outside, all around. Okay, breathing in. All pervasive, free of bias, direction, uncontrived. free of effort. Non-meditation. One more time. Long hung, breathing in. Mhm. Mhm. And the short home, the same way as before, as an intervention, punctuated. Home, 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 home. On your own, whenever you like. And using these as a mirror in the moment of home, looking directly at the essence of that awareness. Home, home, home. Home, home, home. Okay, let's shake off with ha again. Just briefly. Do yeah, just look, rest. We'll practice the Semdzin of Ram. So it's really just that syllable above the RAM there. The circle, the line, and the swoosh. And we're going to be placing this in the belly, the lower belly. So it feels like you can just look at that and feel into the space just below the navel. A red drop of light. If you don't want to visualize that syllable, that's simply a drop of light at the navel is fine. And feel what it's like to gently pull up the perineum to focus from below on that red ram. And you can kind of sway your belly side to side to feel sides of the belly and either side of that ram in the navel. You can move forward and back, start to form front and back around that ram. And then just take a little breath in and let that breath go down, down like a French press, all the way down from above that ram. Just gently hold the breath around that syllable in that space. Mix your mind with that space. And as you do, allow the senses to be open, awareness to be relaxed. So there's a tether in the middle of open space, a single reference point, red drop in the belly, in the middle of nowhere. And you can breathe on top of that holding, breathe in and out, or you can hold the breath as you like. Feel what it's like to have that single point of reference in the lower belly in the midst of openness. Now release it completely. Breathe naturally, let the belly unfold and relax. Whole body, mind, permeable, participating in space. Again, bodhicitta. the essence of this openness and the awareness that knows it, bodhicitta. And again, form that space in the lower belly. Place the syllable around. Feel perhaps its warmth, its aliveness, its uniqueness as bodhicitta in that place. Holding the breath or holding the space and breathing around. Just be with that for a little while. Without losing the space in general, without losing great space. So there's a little bit of effort, a little bit of tension happening in an effortless, open space. And try to make that as uncontrived as possible. Just a tiny bit of reference, tiny bit of effort. A dot in space. And let it go and see if anything changes. Okay, last Semdzin now, which is a very free way of doing deity yoga. So begin by visualizing yourself as any deity, a Buddha, Tara, Chenrezig, any deity, with more or less detail. Color, shape, attributes. Very free form, whatever comes naturally. And then again, release that contrivance. Notice what changes, if anything. Again, arise as a deity in an instant. And this time, place another one at the tip of your nose again. You are a deity with a deity, a replica on the tip of your nose. And again, release that fabrication. See if you're starting to notice what is the same, whether you are doing the thing or releasing the doing. So again, arising as a deity, deity on the tip of the nose, and then replicas of that deity in every pore of your body. Pervasive network over the body. And then release. And again, arise as the deity, deity at the tip of the nose, deities in all the pores of the body. And now as you breathe, take a breath in. And as you breathe out, all of these deities in the pores and on the nose extend in every direction. Breathing out, they spread out. Breathing in, they come back to the body. Every pore of the body is breathing deities, emanating and returning. Try to do that with as little contrivance and effort as possible. In and out, absorbing, radiating. In your next exhalation, just let it all ride out and dissolve into openness. rest without contrivance. Okay. So this was the first, well, we skipped one. We did six of the first group of what is called the 21 Semdzins. And like is the case in a lot of lists, Tibetan lists of things, there'll be, the seven these, which are actually nine, uh, and the 21 Semdzins, which are actually 23 or 25, something like that. But in any case, these are divided into three groups. And we did most of the first group, which has to do with, it's called Nepa, which is the same Nepa as Shine, meaning abiding, remaining. But in this context, it has to do with abiding as recognition of the nature of mind. And and this gives a kind of overall. Then the second group of seven has to do with separating attachment from the body and mind. And then the third has to do with recognizing dharmata. And so there'll be a follow-up to this class in a few weeks where we will take a few more of those from the second two groups. But in general, as you can see, and I'll be curious to hear from you, these are, well, they're very playful in a way, playful methods that are almost not methods. So in the beginning, when you're not familiar, it seems like, oh, like there is a syllable ram and I got to put it in my belly and I got to do this thing and apply the breath in a particular way. But when you become familiar with it, with that particular one or any of these in general, they are designed to be transparent. And, reference that are as well, but really we're just sorry, I'm going to complain to this Airbnb about the internet. So we're giving ourselves a method that allows our habits to hook onto that just enough that when then we release it, the habit can also relax. And so it's a very delicate dance of method and wisdom, which is always the case. But in this context, it's very playful and very figurative and not heavy-handed. It's like you don't have to do this thing in order to have this result. It's more of a kind of celebration of awareness itself. We're not really needing to achieve or arrive at any place or to do anything in particular. And that kind of attitude uh, pervades all of the tradition in general in terms of methods. Where the point here is not learning the method, the thing, and then doing it well. The point is that the method should erase itself. It should get out of its own way. And this is a really helpful approach to practice in general. And it's not something that a message that we always hear. Um, but when we do these well, it's almost like we end up right where we started, but maybe with a little bit more sustainability a little bit more stability and access, in a sense. It makes it sound kind of pragmatic, but there's always these two sides. It's like, yeah, of course we want to apply a method that works to have a result, but we're doing it in this greater context where we understand that's not really the point either. It's already as it is, and we're trying to remember that and come back to that, which is not contrived, which is doesn't take any effort, which is not complicated in any way, and that's why I was repeating this aspect of simplicity. Right? And all of this is also in the context of bodhicitta, which I'm sure many of you are familiar with the Mahayana presentation of bodhicitta, with the wish for the awakening of all beings. And in the Vajrayana, the way that that is embodied in the winds, channels, and drops. And in this context, it is just the very ground of being itself. And so all of these different methods arise in the middle of bodhicitta. You know, we say hung, the hung that we were pronouncing. The very resonance of that is also bodhicitta. The way the body is resonating, the way the environment is resonating, it all is evocative of that very same ground, which is bodhicitta. So trying to weave together these different threads while at the same time introducing these series of practices. And so they come from the great perfection tradition, the Dzogchen tradition, of which there are three main divisions. The first is what's called Semday, Jantrip Semday, or mind class, which is also a translation of bodhicitta, which has much more to do with just pointing out the ground, nature of mind. And that is that aspect of nepa, abiding condition. And that's the first yoga of that, of the mind class is just that, recognizing and abiding in that recognition. The second is called Longday, expanse class. Long is a spacious expanse. And this has more to do with physical methods and ways of in visualization. And this is called oral instructions, menakde or Upadesha. And these 21 Semdzins are part of that third class of Dzogchen, of the Great Perfection. And they come from what is called the 17 tantras of the oral instruction class. And they can be found in what's called the Dra Talgur Tantra, which is kind of the umbrella or origin for all of the 17. And also in another one called the Union of the Sun and Moon, the Nida Kajor Tantra. And they're pretty obscure. You won't really find them practiced much now these days. But my teacher, Choja Namkai Norbu, uh, was very keen on the entirety of the Dzogchen tradition. And so anything that was contained in the tradition as a whole, he was interested in teaching and generally did teach the whole depth and breadth. But in particular, this is one of the things that he highlighted. And then a few modern communities picked that up as a result of that. But historically, they were pretty obscure, but were kind of codified by Longchenpa, Longchen Ramjam, and were part of the Tekjutsu, which is called the Treasury of the Profound Vehicle. And mostly have been kind of sleeping there until the modern time when Namkhai Norpa Rinpoche brought them out. And in my own case, it's something that a team that I'm working with at the University of Virginia, both with David Germano in what his initiative called the Generative Contemplation Initiative, and also with the Contemplative Science Center with Michael Sheehy, we're developing a virtual reality program using a number of these 21 Semdzins to measure outcomes of meditation with EEG, heart rate variability, and microphenomenology. So it's It's kind of a modern day project, a research project that I'm involved in that's been using these 21 Semdzins. So a number of kind of threads came together for me personally with my teachers and then with my work to bring this out. And so that's why this happened today. And I'm curious how, especially if you had questions with any of them or any experiences that you have, and how in particular did was it helpful or not for kind of elucidating or bringing out what is called non-meditation, where you're doing something and then releasing that something in order to remain and be in what already was, in a sense. And if and acknowledging that if you hadn't done that thing, you wouldn't be remaining or acknowledging or knowing what already is in the same way. A lot of paradoxes in that. But it really cuts to the heart of wisdom and method, which is at the center of the Mahayana, um, and which tends to get forgotten, I think, in a lot of Vajrayana practice because it's so method oriented, detailed, like deity yoga, for instance. And you can really get lost in a deity sadhana with what you're holding, what you're wearing, what you're doing, all the mudras, the mantras, the prayers, the visualizations, and so forth. Let alone the yogas that are associated with it. It's really complex. Um, but at the heart of it is really just this gesture of now I'm a deity, and now I release that, and now I adopt it, and I release it. So this way of approaching the same principle can really help us to understand the essence of what the method is trying to accomplish and how it's always connected with wisdom in a sense. So curious to hear about that aspect, or just in general, any kind of experiences that you had, and what was challenging and what worked and so forth. So I just want to open it up if anyone has anything, and if not, I can keep talking about stuff. How are you all doing? So Elon's asking about the translation of the text. So, mhm. Yeah, we have it all translated. You can find if you want a manual of this, you can find it both from Namkhai Norman Rinpoche and also from Keith Dowman has his own version of or oral instructions on these that is commenting on Namkhai Norbu's presentation. And so those are the two main sources for that. And in terms of finding the translation of the texts, though, we have an in-house translation, but I don't know where you would find that otherwise. But yeah, I can if you want to contact me, I'll put my email in the chat. This is for everybody, but Elon in particular, and you can write me and ask about that. Okay. Yeah, Marie.
Yeah, yeah, it's been a while since I've been doing these sorts of Semdzin practices, and yeah, the last one really popped for me. Like uh, my body, like every cell as the deity, and yeah, that was quite. I really have the sense of my body as this profound vessel. Um, so it just, I really had the sense of like, yeah, there's this union of Dzogchen and Tantra, and um, my very own body is this profound vessel of a Buddha, which is really helpful to me because, my body has problems, I have health issues, and, I tend to denigrate, like, oh God, the body is such a problem, and to have that experience of the body as a deity and the vehicle for bodhicitta is just a real gift. So, I thank you for this teaching, and also the Semdzin, the one, the little ah, like that just expands into space too. That was an interesting one. Um, it just sort of pops through this delusion of me here in this little body, and then space out there. This kind of like my relationship with space kind of flips. So anyway,
Mm.
it's very cool, very cool.
And where did you said you practiced some of them. It's been a while since you did it. Where did
Yeah,
you?
the Aro Tur, there was the 21 Semzins in that tradition, different Semzins. Also, Tenzin Wangyal teaches some Semday practices. There's some Semzins, but I mean, the Semzin, I guess the purpose is to just have that pop of into Rigpa from this really simple technique, as I understand it. So pop you, pop you into Rigpa. Oh,
Yeah, wonderful. And just that aspect of the body. Data yoga for sure, and what we've seen with the energy bodies that we are working with in virtual reality, that there's a level of embodiment that is beneath or is more uh, primal to whatever chronic pain, no body that is before all of that, that is more, oops, and pause, yeah. So there's a layer of the body that is before that, beneath that, or more essential inside of that. And so, of course, we can work with pain, we can work with what difficulties we're having on the surface level, and that's kind of unavoidable to do that work. But we also can benefit from the knowledge of a deeper mode of embodiment, and that can be very liberating. And then even more essential is Dharmakaya, the nobody body, as Andrew Holishek says, and that is total freedom, right? Because there's no aspect of change, right? And it's unborn, and so it's undying. So all of that, yeah, that's all great. Thanks, Maria. Yeah, Nate.
Yeah. Thanks for leading practice today. That was great. A couple comments. I really appreciated kind of the lightness that you mentioned. I've been trying to make sure that I'm incorporating fun and curiosity into my practice lately, and just trying to make sure that those are present. And so, um, I think with the verbalization of ha and kind of adding that bit of humor or that awareness, oh, this doesn't have to be heavy, it's just kind of catching yourself up, here I go again, getting
Mhm.
uptight or getting attached. So that was a nice way of bringing that in. Um, and then I guess I was also kind of feeling into the practicality of these very, very simple concepts with the syllables, just very basic contrivance and dissolution as a nice practice for, day-to-day life when you're stuck in traffic or feeling uptight. Just like if you can recognize it on a really subtle level, recognizing it in a really obvious macro level might be easier to introduce that practice of letting go. So I think that's all I got. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. Yeah, and it's hard to um I should say it is somewhat disingenuous to present these in the way that I have, because in general, this would be something that someone would do after having created a link with a teacher and received a direct introduction. So it almost assumes knowledge of nature of mind, familiarity with nature of mind. And then its simplicity is possible because you really just need to remember. And it gives you a little bit more meat or juice for the remembering. And as opposed to we don't know nature of mind, and we're looking, on some level we intuit there's more to the story, and we're longing for what we know on some level to be true, but yet is out of reach or out of sight, and it feels like it's somewhere else or some other time in the future to be found, right? And if we then practice these in that context, it's more of a kind of hit and miss thing. It's like, oh, that was uncanny, that thing that I did, and then when I undid it or when I did it again, and it's more of like a kind of shotgun approach of just trying to throw it out there and see what opens, right? And that's a very different kind of context than maybe, I assume, than the one in which these were generally transmitted. But it is the way that we are doing it as part of the work we're doing now. And I think that there isn't much harm in it, because there is essential power in these techniques, that can make us very accident prone to seeing, to seeing something that we might not have seen before, and to knowing something that we didn't realize that we knew. Um, so all of these kind of paradoxes of the path are really put into play front and center here. Um, but when there is recognition, then yeah, it can be a very simple way in the middle of whatever you might be doing in your life to come back, and then put the ram in the belly, hold the winds, and then everything can kind of align, and you can let go of it and just simply be. Or flashing on a deity. You don't have to like get out your texts, get all the offerings, start revving up the lineage prayers, and like finally, like half hour later, like get to the mantra and then be a deity and the whole thing. You can just in an instant remember, and then in the next instant let it go. It's very free form. But again, that assumes that you already know where you're going in a sense. But two ways of approaching and practicing these, and I think they're both, yeah, Jake, how much of that did you hear?
Not a lot.
We've lost the last minute or two.
Yeah, let me try to hotspot my phone. This is really bad. Hopefully we'll get a rebate on this Airbnb. So I was saying that there's really kind of two ways of approaching the practice of the Semdzin, and the more traditional way is that it is depending on introduction to nature of mind. And the second is that it's setting the stage for that recognition. And I'm going to switch to my phone here. One second. Okay. Jacob, what did you have?
I just wanted to express my appreciation for you doing this. I'm part of the Dzogchen practice group, at Wonderwell for the last year or so, and it leans very forward into that for I guess the first class of teachings, which is introduction to the nature of mind and pointing out and pointing out and pointing out and pointing out, and that I so appreciate the embodied bodhicitta piece that you bring in, and it really feels like a great balance for me. And I know there's many different teachings that happen at Wonderwell, and I'm just feeling like just in this particular group that right now the teachings are skewed that way, I guess, until they go on to something else. But thank you so much um, for doing this.
Mhm. Yeah, I'm sure if you bring it up with either Lama Willow or Lama Liz, they'll agree with you and be curious about how to do more of that. I mean, a lot of what a lot of the way that I teach is very much in conversation with Lama Willow. So I'm curious what aspect of embodied bodhicitta are you looking for that you're not finding?
Well, I had to really do the work on my own, and so discover how to open into Rigpa from a relative place of bodhicitta, which is what you were
Sure.
doing. And so
Hmm.
that's something I've been doing on my own. I did it, I just completed a dark retreat recently. And so that was a lot of what I was doing is this fully embodied practice, and everything comes out of that. And instead of um, more what I was doing before, which is sort of the up and out, as Andrew Holacek would talk about, this opening into Rigpa, but yet leaving the body behind, and that and not having it all integrated, which is so yeah, I feel I found it.
Sure, yeah.
So that's what I practice. And
Mhm.
also the deity light practices, because I've never been one big into sadhanas. And so I would just sort of, you do a little bit, then you skip to the end, right? Basically. And you go from that place of, do the mantras, and then you just open into Rigpa from, Shenrezi or whatever. And so
Mhm.
I like that playful practice. And I'm a rule breaker anyway. So that's,
Mhm. Yeah, wonderful. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing. And that is, yeah, there a lot of times there is what I was saying before as a gap. There can be a gap in the way that especially Vajrayana is taught. Either relative to the Mahayana, it's like, oh, right, we're doing this to benefit all beings. Like, that there may be a gap there in your immediate experience. It may be something you start with and you do this thing, and then you kind of lose the bodhicitta because everything is so complicated that it's hard to kind of remember and actually feel how that might be the case. Or it's just so challenging, psychologically, physically demanding, that it might be hard to make that translation. But it is there, and that message is really important. But then also there may be a gap between Vajrayana practice and nature of mind, again, because it's so method oriented. It may be difficult to then just take that step and say, oh, this is just an elaboration of what is always already. And so, as you mentioned, something like dark retreat is a really good way of bridging that gap. Because if you do something like deity yoga in the dark, it's very apparent that it's the same thing, right? So addressing those gaps is really important, and I think needed for a lot of people. Yeah, thanks for sharing, Jake. Yeah, Elon.
Hi, I just simply wanted to express a lot of appreciation and thanks. Um, I had never met you before, and it's really clear like how thoughtful you are about how you're leading and presenting us through everything, like just from first helping us to find presence through embodiments and then shaking out sometimes, in between, and just the language you're using and every um, piece of it I found really helpful and wonderful, and but also like a very inspiring model of how to present. So um, I just wanted to say this is extremely useful. I'm glad you're going to keep teaching on it, and just to kind of encourage that thank you for doing this. Please keep doing this sort of thing.
Cool. Yeah. Thanks, Elon. Yeah, we'll be coming back again in August. I forget the date. And then we'll go through some of the remaining ones. And yeah, you're welcome to connect more there or elsewhere. Yeah. Yeah, Jen?
Hi, thank you. I don't know quite how to ask this. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Um, I looked up the syllable RA and it says it's a seed syllable for the fire element,
Mm.
and that it's says a little bit, and then for burning away of spiritual ignorance. Can you give me any insight into how does RA become uh, uh, how did it become associated with fire? And these same questions apply to the hung or hum that you were doing earlier. Why do they have an effect? Is this vibrational? By using hung, for example, that's a really good one. Are we actually causing ourselves to vibrate in unity with the universal vibration? I'm sorry, I can't think of the words to ask.
Mm. Yeah, so there's different ways of answering that. One, which I know you resonate with in terms of what's called the grammarian school of Indian philosophy, which is based in Sanskrit, uh, which looks at the kind of esoteric underpinnings of the language, Sanskrit language, and especially these different bija or seed syllables and how they resonate in unique ways and how they form both internal and external realities. And then how by using them, you can coordinate those correspondences between the inner and the outer and cut through confusion or achieve or affect different types of activities and so forth. So that's a whole, super esoteric, the mysticism of language in this context of Sanskrit. Gaudapada, Abhinavagupta, all of these Indians have a lot to say about that. And then those are mostly in the Shaivite context. And it goes even further back into, the Vedas and just Brahmanical culture around the recitation of the Vedas and then the Upanishads. So like there's a very deep and ancient kind of history to the answer to that question. And in the Buddhists at a certain point picked that up because it came out of the Indian context and then made use of it in their own way, which is not unrelated, but is more unique to the Buddhist understanding of the goal or the fruit, which is Buddhahood. And so different syllables will relate to that goal in different ways. In terms of the ones that we used four in particular. Well, five. Ah, which we didn't actually sonify. We used pe. We used ha, hum, and ram. And they're all quite different in terms of answering that question. With ram, this is much more of like a bread and butter basic seed syllable of fire that is used across traditions. Indian tantra, Buddhist and non-Buddhist, and so forth. And why is that syllable ram resonant with fire? I can't really say. I'm sure I could find the answer somewhere. Um, it's more, I think, more important is to feel it in the body, and the shape of the letter is also that very thing. And so it's not just the resonance, but it's also the radiance. So the shape and the resonance together are the same thing. They communicate the very same thing. And then when you put that shape and that sound in the body, particularly in that place in the body, which can be the heart, but generally in the belly, then it will resonate with the constituent in the body, which is fire, digestive fire, metabolic fire, and accentuate that. And then you get into all of the inner yogas, especially the Tummo and so forth, and how this is kind of a predecessor of all of that. But yeah, it's a syllable that is resonant and radiant with dimensions of inner and outer uh, realities, I guess you could say. And you could go through all of the others in a similar way. Um, Hung is it's kind of like Om, in the Shaivite tradition. You can go on and on about the ah, and the and how they connect different levels of reality and all the rest, and Shaiva consciousness and all of the stuff that's associated with it. In the Buddhist context, it's a little bit, well, it's probably just as sophisticated, but has a different kind of valence. But Hung is the dimension of mind, the mind of the Buddhas. And when we're intoning Hung, it goes into that more dimension of dissolution and non-manifestation, the unmanifest aspect of things. So, it just gets very, very conceptual, and you could tell stories forever about why these work in different ways. And I'm also not up to it anyway. But I think that the most important thing is to discover it in your own experience, and to place them or to intone them and to feel what is the result. And really, all it is to kind of untie something, no matter what it is doing. In this context, especially, it's way less instrumental, and it's more of like a flavor or a tone that brings you back home. If that's helpful.
While you were talking, something came back to me from a long time ago. Is it true that if you play a tuning fork, another tuning fork in the same room will start resonating the same way, or something like
Mhm.
that? Is
Yeah, I
that
think
some?
things will resonate that have a similar constitution.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah. You
that's what I was
talk to
getting at.
Karina about that. Mm.
Right.
Yeah, my wife
One
does sound healing.
one time after a prolonged session of playing the tambura, I walked out, feel my whole body and the whole universe. I felt we're all saying AUM.
Mhm. Good. Anything else before we dedicate? Sorry about the reception. I should have switched over earlier. Um, all right, let's August 9th. Thanks. Yeah, let's do the dedication here. Through this merit, may I gain omniscience and defeat my faults, the enemy, and may I liberate all beings from this rough and stormy sea. Samsara's ocean with its waves of birth, old age, death, and disease. They know things in their true existence, Kuntu, Zangpo, and Manjushri. To train myself in their example, I dedicate all virtue fully. May every being through this practice completely gather merit and wisdom, attaining the two sacred bodies that merit and wisdom emanate. For the blessings of the Buddhakayas, for the blessings of changeless Dharmata, for the blessings of the steadfast Sangha, may this dedication be fulfilled. Okay, thanks everybody. Miss you all.